Hello, everybody, and welcome to ABM Answered, the quick-fire demand gen and ABM video series, or at least that's what we aim for. Today, I'm excited to be joined by the very talented Jillian Kondamudi.
Kondamudi, yeah.
Woof, God, I got there on the second attempt. Who is a senior ABM specialist, a sales and marketing alignment genius, and also, I believe if I've got this right, you focus more on growth ABM, so like a lot of one to few and one to many campaigns. Is it over one to one?
Yes.
But yeah, let's unpack that as a good starting point, Jillian. Like, tell me a bit about you and how you ended up in the ABM space.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of fell into ABM over the last 3 or so years. And so really starting with Sixth Sense. Sixth Sense kind of opened me up into ABM. And it really was a philosophy that I had really kind of unofficially been following. And so once I found it, I was really, really interested and became sort of that enthusiast nerd about the data and bringing it all together. But yeah, I've been doing it for the last couple of years and have really enjoyed a lot of the research that I've done within it. And it's kind of new. And so I like that. I enjoy that.
For sure. And who would have thought personalized marketing would just, work better?
Yeah, right.
Crazy, isn't it?
I know. Foreign.
So, Julia, just running through the rules and the viewers through the rules, I'm going to give you a set of questions to respond to all about ABM. The questions have come from either previous guests or the information we've collected at Mixed Reality Rooms, where 1,000 marketers have gone through and stated what their biggest headaches are, and we've cherry-picked some of the best ones for you. So, are you ready for me to bring up question one?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
So, question one came in from Sarab Sanghi. And it's a very nice question to start with. It's subjective. There's a lot of ways that you could take it. But he asked, what is the right time for an organization to adopt an ABM approach?
Yeah, this is a really good question. Because not all companies, I don't think, are quite ready for it yet. I would say simply that when the organization is ready to implement ABM directly into their go-to-market. So this means top-down alignment, buy-in from the executive level down to each go-to-market team. If sales is the last to hear of ABM, good luck getting it started off the ground. ABM and sales need to be really glued together to be that powerful engine and be aligned completely from the very beginning. If only marketing, or God forbid, one solo ABM practitioner on the marketing team attempts to leverage ABM, it's set up for failure. A common misconception I feel like a lot of people have about ABM is that it's just this fun new marketing strategy, but it's not purely marketing. It's a go-to-market. And so if you go into it thinking that way, you won't likely set up your team for very much success. And then last thing I would say is that if you do go for it and start small and scale up at your own pace, because understanding that you won't immediately see a 3x pipeline growth is really critical to start out before you even begin your ABM journey. I've seen companies overpromise ABM in the beginning and then just lose that buy-in when proving that value wasn't an immediate success. ABM does take time, and I do think it is worth it.
That's a great start, and I've got follow-on questions, but I know we addressed that in the questions coming up, so I'll keep that to a minimum. The second question that came in was from a mix of guests, actually. I've kind of amalgamated the answers, but first was from Matt Conway at TX1 Networks, Cyber Company, and then we've got the other from Katie O'Neill from Noetic. And ultimately they're asking, what is a simple way to explain to those cavemen salespeople, no, I shouldn't give sales so much heat, like the great work that marketing are doing. So without kind of overcomplicating it. So you mentioned, and I'm in total agreement, that alignment needs to be there for ABM to work. But what are some of the actual, maybe more tactile tips of how you can, bridge that relationship and bring them together?
Yeah. Sales relationship is so important. You do have to speak sales language. I think as marketers, we have our own language and we forget. And so think about what they care about. Likely they're not going to care about all those nitty-gritty data that we find so interesting, but all they want is actionable insights that will help them create more personalized experiences with their prospects and customers. So don't give them the world, cut out the minutia. Also, everyone is different. So sales at one team that you are at in one company might be different than another company, and they might care about different data or metrics. So if you're starting out at a job and you're presenting to sales for the first time, jot down the questions that they ask you. And make sure that that's included in the next time. Sales usually will tell you straight up what they want and what they care about. We just have to listen. You do not want them to tune you out because, like we've said, it's really important to have that alignment. So only share what they care about. And then you will build more trust and confidence in that relationship with them. In my experience, it's made them listen more.
That's a great point. And to tie your first two answers together, like starting with a pilot, like we haven't had that as like a bit of tactical advice yet, that take like the frequently asked questions by sales. So you'll probably start with maybe a handful of sales reps. It depends how big the company. It could be one sales rep if it's really small pilot, but take those questions, almost put it into a cheat sheet of like questions. I've also heard recently on another topic, like instead of text answers, like video response answers, but I think that might be more customer facing stuff. But that's a really good idea to have for when you go to scale ABM out across the whole sales division, if you've already got those FAQs there and you don't have to go over those obstacles again. This is awesome. This is going really, really good.
I would say, like, and this is me rambling like I already told you I do, but I think that identifying those power users in the beginning, don't force everyone who's not ready yet for ABM. Find the people who are curious and then just expound on that, focus on them, and then they can be your success that everyone else is like, I want to do what he's doing or what she's doing. Yeah. I'll not ramble.
No. It's good. Your rambling's good. Like you can't do anything without a little enthusiasm as well. So it's good to find the right champions. Question 3 was creating meaningful content for your key accounts, right? So there's a lot of ways to do this, but like specifically for you, maybe from a growth perspective, growth ABM perspective, like how would you go about creating and then maybe repurposing content for your key accounts? And then maybe we can talk also about kind of what channels potentially, how do you decide on what channels you pick, how do you decide what resonates, like do you iterate messaging, and then maybe how do you identify the gaps and pains. And a hunch tells me it's going to come back to sales and marketing alignment as well, but I will let you take the floor. I've asked you about 6 questions in one there, so I'll
do my best here. Okay, so first I would gather in all the intel that I can on the customer's needs and where they are in their buying stage. So I'd collect, there's so much more data than I think that we have access to. So collect that first party data within your existing database, and then internal data from your sales and customer success. And then obviously third party data from other intent sources. And then if you want to go deeper in and maybe more plays like one to few or one to one, I would do some more old school research, scour their website, online activity, and presence. So I want to break down not only their industry to personalize their content, but also specific use cases. And then also by looking at historical data, you can help identify channels and the messaging that would more likely resonate with them. So what would really help in the future is feedback loop reporting, because that really helps you build out campaigns that you're continually learning and adapting to the changes in the market. And then identifying gaps in their knowledge, I would analyze the buying journey and then track common questions or objections, and then review again content performance to pinpoint those ideas of where the account needs to focus more, where we need to focus more on for the account, where their gaps are, and whatever will help them move forward in their decision-making process. Certainly there's sales alignment for this as well. All of this comes together of we're all sharing the same data, we're all sharing the same information, because I think that sales and customer success and other teams like that are such a treasure trove, and I'll talk about that in other questions that you have here, but yeah, they're untapped into most of the time.
For sure. All right, we'll definitely cover that in other questions as well, but solid response. Question 4 came in from Janelle Amos at Elevate Growth, and again another awesome question. What are the top 3 things you would prioritize today if you were building a marketing strategy from scratch and let's use like a larger enterprise like Acma as well, like to kind of scope that as opposed to like a smaller startup scale up.
Yep. So going into that, let's say that you've already done a little bit of research, some groundwork work and you have your target audience and your ICP identified. So where I would prioritize my time is channel, content, and voice or messaging. So first, channel, if you've already done your research on the ICP, maybe you've already discovered this, but it's so important to be where they're at. You can invest a lot of money and time into dead channels. So you got to really laser focus your spend on the best way to reach your audience. And second is content. So this gets so overlooked. Content is king for a reason. If you get all the variables right, you got the right people, the right place, the right time, but you don't have the right content, all of your work will be for absolutely nothing. And then they're just going to get, they're already bombarded with so much noise. So you just have to make sure that your answer to their problem as soon as you grab their attention. And then lastly, another historically, I would say, underappreciated discipline is voice. Messaging is the gate to your content, so it's just as important. You have to get their attention first, and so you have to speak their language to cut through all that noise. I cannot emphasize this enough.
So on that, there's all right. Do you know what? I'm going to go for the gone questions. What are there any channels you found, like beyond LinkedIn, for example, that have like surprisingly stood out for you? There might not be an answer to this. It could be Reddit. It could be, I don't know, some Slack groups. Like just anything that's surprised you.
Yeah, I think Reddit is a surprising channel that I come from, when I was working with Akamai, we're really targeting developers. So that really is Reddit is a pretty good channel, I would say, to more so observe what they're interested in. I wouldn't say so much, I think that they don't want to be marketed to developers, and so you can't be too aggressive there. But if you use it and leverage Reddit as a learning tool, I think that's probably better suited. Yeah.
To create
Yes.
like copy.
Exactly. Yeah, because you don't want to sound like marketing. And again, this is kind of specific to this audience, but you really don't. And everyone, I would say, is so, again, I say this multiple times, but or keep saying this, is that everyone's bombarded with uh so much trying to get their attention, that you do have to stand out and you have to meet them where they're at. So that's why understanding where they are on their buying stage and just, okay, how much do they know? And you're coming in as an advisor to that, and you're being, oh, they want to know this, let me give them this, which is why it's important to find the right people. You can't, force someone into something if they don't actually need that, or it's just not the right time for them. So just being their right hand person, basically. Through your content.
That's good. The next question came from Drew Smith. He said, "How would you run ABM without expensive tools?"
Yeah, so what I would say for this is, instead of starting out with your top companies list, utilize your CRM to model companies who are successful customers. And so that would be your target list. And then you utilize your customer success and your sales team, book time with those teams. They know a lot of the questions that you already have about your target audience. So leverage their knowledge to help you identify what types of content and messaging that you should be modeling after.
Right, Jillian.
Yes.
The next question is, how has the buyer's journey changed in the last couple of years, and how should we as marketers respond to it?
Yeah, I mean, this really depends on the industry that you're in, but I would say that across the board, ABMers really need to be adapting quickly to change. So I think everyone would say that the buyer's journey is nonlinear. What we knew 6 months ago is already outdated in some ways. So we do have to be constantly observing those slight changes and then iterating our plays along the way.
It's quite annoying, really, isn't it, as marketers, because we kind of ruin everything really quickly now, and it's like what would work for like a couple of years now, within like 3 months, is all right, that's done. We need to have a new content format, or we need to focus on a new channel, or we need to find the leverage somewhere else.
Yeah.
We've kind of made our job even more difficult for for ourselves.
We have, and and I think people are so complex too, and we're all, as a society and whatever, we're all changing too. So part of that is just the complexity of humanity, I guess.
And the just another little follow-on. I had an interview yesterday with Deepak, who runs ABM at Planview, so it's a big company. And he was also saying, and it'll be on the show, that it's every channel, and what it's done, it's like outbound, it's ads, it's inviting people to events, and it's almost got to the point where the only thing we can focus on is just creating an awesome self-discovery buyer's journey, so that when they're ready, they buy. That was a bit of a side tangent, which really had no
Yeah, no,
value,
that's
but I
really
just thought it was
true.
interesting from what he was saying.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
Okay, so this is
Good.
the final one, right? So
It is.
how okay, Jillian, how would you approach identifying and understanding the needs of your target market, and do you use this information to adapt your marketing strategy?
Short answer is yes. You use all the data at your fingertips. Like I said before, if you're not using fancy tools like Sixth Sense or even like G2, something like that, you do have a wealth of knowledge within your go-to-market teams. So use them, lean on their knowledge to better understand your target needs, because like we've been saying, they're changing and we have to adapt with them and quickly, because our competitors are doing that. So make sure that the channels you're using, the content you're pointing them to, and the message that you're engaging them with is all formulated based on those learnings. I think it's really easy for us to kind of go back into default mode of, okay, well, here's what we're supposed to say, whatnot. It has to be based on the data that we have. Otherwise, you're just going to be contributing to the other useless noise that your audience is subjected to every single day. And then I guess I'll end with this. I love the expression of thinking of each marketing engagement as a face-to-face conversation. So you wouldn't just walk up to somebody and start rambling about how your company is so great and all these things. You got to listen and observe and then iterate. So that's how I'll end that question.
That's a great bit of practical advice. You're right, because as soon as someone does that in public or like at an in-person event, you switch off immediately, or you
Yeah.
get like a really bad feel from them. So that's a really good way to kind of a tactical bit of advice to focus of how to approach it. What I've loved about this episode is you've actually given like in the weeds kind of like actual tactile knowledge, because I think a lot of ABM
Yeah.
content out there at the moment is still very high level, and like people actually want to know how and why and like
Yes.
what they do. So you've nailed this, Jillian.
Thanks.
The last you've done far better than me, that's for sure. The last I'll throw in one curveball question, feel free
Okay.
not to answer, but it's like, if you could invent one software or tool, like what would it be, what would it do, and why, like,
Ooh.
if at all? Or do you
Okay.
not really?
There's so many great tools out there already. I don't know. I think it would definitely have to do with AI and kind of leveraging that in some way. I feel like there's so much that we could do with it. And I hate saying that because I know that AI is kind of, but it can be used as a buzzword right now. But I think that probably doing something to where we could basically use data points to kind of create your own, I guess, like personas, information on personas, so that you have, as they're changing, and I guess maybe, okay, if this is the world, we could do whatever. It could read the data that we're getting fed from all the different sources, and it could tell you what are the changes, and it could tell you this is changing. We're seeing trends like this. We're seeing, the engagement's going lower or it's getting higher or whatnot, and it could kind of predict those maybe.
Yeah, so like over first party and third party like kind of
Yeah,
data as well,
combine
because I
it.
think that's a that's for off the top of the dome. That was a very good idea actually. No, Jillian, the last thing I promise I'll ask you is, do you have a question for our next guest?
Yes, I do. So, I've been a solo ABM practitioner in all of my roles that I've been ABM. And so I would ask, because this is something I would have, wanted to know at the time, is what would a solo ABM practitioner do in a company if they have no budget? where would they start and what would they do? Because I think we all find ourselves sometimes in situations like that. And I just would love to know what everyone else would do in that position, and what types of tips and whatnot. So I learned to be really scrappy and kind of find anything and everything and get, as like you said, really down to the nitty gritty of like what we're doing here. So I'm just curious about what someone else would do.
That is a great question because you make a very good point. Because you look at a lot of ABM teams, scale ups, enterprise, it's slightly different, but like it's often one person teams.
Most of the time,
And there's no like necessarily like management. It's just like you're the ABMer, pull everyone
go do it.
together, orchestrate the campaign. Yeah. And it also kind of leads to the good question of like, yeah, the start. Well, as you said, starting out of what would you differently? How would you start it? Great question, Jillian. I will add that, and thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. Thank you so much.